Hey, hey, are you there?
What? What are you doing? You called me.
Let's do this, man. Come on.
Let's do it.
Well, today we have a little bit of a different episode for you because it's not on the normal Friday. It's actually on Wednesday because, again, we pre-recorded an episode not realizing how many Fridays there would be in a certain month, but we wanted to get this one in under the 2025 umbrella. So I hope everyone has a wonderful New Year's Eve. Stay safe out there,
Yep.
and a beautiful start to 2026. So happy holidays. Happy New Year's, and we hope you enjoy this episode on Between the Notes podcast.
See you next year. Hey, welcome back. We've got a really good one for you today. We're going to talk a little bit about when things go awry, right? Whether it's the set or a costume piece or your flights or any of that kind of stuff, but mainly stuff around the theater, and just share some stories of interesting things that we've had happen.
Crazy mishaps.
Yeah, and I got a couple of good ones for you. So yeah, I'll let you start. I started off. So tell me one that's on your mind.
Well, I think, first of all, for young singers that are out there, I think that for some reason, I know I used to think this way. It's like we try to be perfect, right? We try to be perfect with our technique. We try to be, you know, oh, the entrance. I instead of crossing left there, I stood still and I missed my, you know what I mean? It's like we get
Right.
so worried and caught up in like
Sure.
I don't know, the way that we rehearsed it or the way that, we thought it was supposed to go, not
Right.
realizing that sometimes spontaneity or like, I remember one time, like my freshman year in undergrad, one of the first things that our opera theater director taught us, who happened to also be my voice teacher,
Uh-huh.
Gerald Dolter, another shout out to Jerry.
Right.
He said the first rule of theater is never rely on your colleagues. And and I was like,
Yeah.
coming from high school, I was like, oh my God, but like
We're a
theater,
team.
we're a team and
Right.
everybody does but it's like
Right.
I understood his point where he was trying to say like you might have a colleague that didn't learn their music, or you might
Right.
have someone who, forgot to make their entrance or whatever it may be. And I look back on those times and I'm like, I'm so grateful for the experiences that he had that led him to teach us in that way. Because I will say, um, the first one that comes to mind is I was singing Figaro in the Barber of Seville
Uh-huh.
on tour, and we were doing, I mean, I think we did like 64 performances of
Wow.
Barber.
Right.
We were doing, and it was a company where there were two sopranos, two mezzos, two tenors, two baritones.
Mm-hmm.
So on the night that you were singing, that I was singing Figaro, the other baritone was singing Fiorello, uh,
Uh-huh.
and the police sergeant in Act One, right?
Right.
So you got to essentially take a night off.
Right.
But the basses, they were singing Bartolo,
Yeah.
Basilio, and there were
Right.
numerous times we were doing back to back to back,
Oh,
nights.
wow.
Sometimes we would do two-a-days where we'd do one in the afternoon and then we'd go to a different location and do it on the night.
That's
So anyway,
brutal. That is brutal.
it was absolutely, it was crazy, but it's like you don't know what you don't know, and you survive off of youth and adrenaline and pizza,
Right.
whatever
Right.
it is.
Right. Exactly.
But I remember one of the Rosinas, um, and it was funny because for the women, you didn't have like the Berta, I guess, was the soprano. So the off night soprano and the off night Rosina, um, they were just basically off. I don't think they had to really do anything. And the reason I know this is because the night I was singing with my Rosina,
Uh-huh.
um, this was a type of woman who, if you gave her 3 hours or 3 seconds before her entrance, she'd be in the same place. Like, oh, okay. Like she's just constantly trying to get ready, like never ready and prepared. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Right.
And sure enough, this was like the moment in the opera where Figaro overhears Basilio telling Bartolo their plan. When they're coming up with what they're going to do, and so as soon as they leave, Figaro has this line where he's like, "Oh, okay, now I have to tell Rosina," and at that moment, Rosina is supposed to enter the room, And then Rosina, and that leads to eventually into the duet between Figaro and Rosina, and then
Uh-huh.
the Act One finale. And well, Rosina did not show up.
Oh,
And so I looked at the harpsichordist and I was like, I wonder where she could be now. Yeah, thank God we were singing. So the statement, the mission statement, sorry,
right.
of the company was to perform opera in the language of its audience, and so we were doing everything in English, and thankfully because my Italian at that point was not improvisational in means, and so I just looked at the harpsichordist and I was like, I wonder where she could be now. She's probably running late. Rosina, where could you be? I'm just trying to make
Oh
things
my
up in,
God,
in
that's
secco
hilarious.
recitative, right?
Right. Oh, wow.
I wonder if I open this door, could she be there? And I open the door. She is laying on the ground in tears, holding her knee. And so she's laying there, and I just looked at her and I went, Rosina, what's the matter? And I picked her up and I
Oh
drug her on stage
my
with me.
God.
And she's like limping, limping around the stage
No.
and like tears. She's like literally
Well,
fighting back
yeah, of
tears.
course. I'm sure it's
She had
hugely
run
painful.
and dislocated her knee. And so she ended up singing the duet with me and then the Act One finale. And then the ambulance came and took her off. And then our other Rosina
Rosina, right.
suited up and went in for
Oh
the
my gosh.
second act after
Wow.
the intermission.
I have to say, yeah, I don't have any dramatic stories like that for sure.
Well,
Um,
as you progress through this sort of like, I don't know,
yeah,
career, things
right.
get a little bit more and more and more taken care of. Like, you
Sure.
have people there to make sure that nothing is unsafe.
Right.
We were in some theater that, I mean, it's like we were the ones that unloaded the set off the 18-wheeler and set it up. We
Right.
were the ones that hung the lights to make sure the lighting was correct.
Wow.
We
Wow.
were the ones that took care of our costumes and wigs. Like, we did everything. And on one hand, what an incredible experience to have sort
Sure.
of learned the theater in that way. But on the other hand, we didn't really have anybody standing right there going, and go. Like, we didn't
Right.
have
Right.
ASMs. We didn't have a
Right.
PSM.
Right.
We kind of just made it work.
But it teaches you such appreciation for all different aspects of everybody who's,
Yeah,
working to put on this show together.
absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
yeah, it reminds me of the fact that you were on there kind of on stage making stuff up, like when Kaufman did that encore of E Lucevano le Stelle, and like you got pissed off, and so she didn't come out,
Oh, I
and
don't know
so
about
he's
this.
like, oh, in Vienna, no, you didn't know about this.
But yeah, I don't know.
So she just always has a little bit of trouble when a colleague of hers maybe is also shining brightly.
Sure.
And he missed the E Lucevano le Stelle, and I guess while he was singing it the second time, she decided she wasn't going to come on stage. And so there's video somewhere of him being like, tanto la vida, rah, it's amazing. And then it's like,
Right. Her music.
and they're supposed to go, Fuori via Tosca, libero, and where he reads the thing. And she doesn't come out. So they're just like tremoloing on this thing. And he's like, Dove la mia Tosca?
It's
But I mean,
amazing.
it's not recitative, so he can't he
Right?
can't
It's
keep
making
going.
stuff up,
So they
making up
just
Puccini.
stop. They just stop.
Oh my
And
gosh.
I don't remember exactly what happened after that. I think they finally got her to come back on stage and finish the show, but it was just hilarious because you just see him sitting there there's definitely video of this. I've seen it.
Yeah.
And anyways,
Now that
it's
you're talking about it, I actually do
funny.
think I've seen this. I
Yeah,
just
yeah.
forgot about it.
When it happened a couple years ago, it went around like wildfire.
Yeah. Well, speaking of
Yeah.
things stopping, I remember when I was an apprentice at Santa Fe Opera,
Uh-huh.
a rattlesnake of some
Oh no.
size bit through the I don't know exactly what
What?
happened, but the snake bit into something important enough to make all of the electricity in the theater go out. And we were doing a production of Eugene Onegin, and it had this turntable
Yeah.
that was everything stopped, and they were like, "Okay, give us a second to figure out a second
What
turned
just
into
happened?
like a half hour,
Well, yeah,
and
sure.
they had to bring out this generator, and they put up like work lights, like not work lights on a theater,
Yeah.
like work lights that a construction crew on the side of a road would have, right?
Right.
And then we turned it into like a concert version where we just basically stood there and sang.
Well,
And
yeah, what else
they
are
were
you
like,
gonna do?
we're happy to give you your ticket money back, but if you want to stay and we'll sing the
Right.
rest of the show for you."
Right.
It was crazy. That was crazy.
Wow, yeah, that's crazy. I mean, turntables are something that, like, notoriously are going to break down. I know during the Bohem here, at IU, on the opening night, the turntable broke, and
No.
not only did it break, but it broke itself. Like, it didn't just, like, stop working. It had then, like, messed something up to where they had to, like, spend a lot of money to get it fixed,
Oh
and
no.
have, bring in 2 people from, there are not a lot of people, I guess, that work on these theater turntables like that, so they had to bring them in and
Right.
all that kind of stuff, and there's pictures and all that, and they're trying to raise money to get things up, and it reminds me of another time, turntable incident where I was at the Met, and we were doing Les Troyens, and during the duet in Act 4 with, me and Susan Graham, um, the turntable starts turning, and we walk counter to the turntable, right? So we're
Right.
kind of, it looks like we're
Looks like
traveling,
you're
but we're
being
actually staying in the same place because of how it goes, and it was not super crazy choreography, um, but when you're trying to do that and then the turntable doesn't move, you're like, "Oh, whoa, okay."
it didn't turn
It
on.
just didn't start moving.
So then that turns into like a stage left cross instead of like
Right,
traveling
exactly.
through time.
And so we just kinda stood there and did it, because if we would've walked across, we would've gotten into the way of other people. So,
Right.
it was just really, something, and then they took, like, again, a 30-minute intermission, to kinda get that going.
Yeah.
But I think the most notorious story that I've been involved in, at the Met, is when, someone decided to sprinkle his friend's ashes in the orchestra pit.
What?
I didn't tell you
Wait a
this
minute. I
story?
do no, no,
Yeah,
no, I do remember
yeah,
this.
yeah.
Somebody had passed away or something,
Yeah,
and
it was
his dream was to be,
sprinkled, scattered among the great opera houses of the world.
but of course, what do ashes sort of look like? They look like it could be anthrax or
Yeah,
something,
exactly,
right?
and that's what everybody thought, because this was, gosh, back in 20 s no, this has been before the kids were born, so probably, yeah, 2012, 2013, something like that,
Wow.
and,
Well, I remember
oh,
there
no,
was
no,
like a
yeah, not the Guillaume Tell, the Troyen was before the kids were born. Guillaume Tell, the kids were already born, so that would've been later
well,
than
but I
that.
remember there was like these scares where people were like like mailing envelopes
Oh,
that were
yeah,
laced with like
right.
it was a thing in our
It was
country
definitely a
where
thing.
people were afraid of, like
Right.
keeping on the lookout. So I can imagine them totally freaking out.
So, yeah, they canceled the rest of that show,
Was it
and then,
during like an intermission or something?
yes, the intermission between Act 4 and 5 of, Guillaume Tell. We're 3 hours and 45 minutes, 4 hours into it,
And somebody just walked to the orchestra pit and
and
started,
sprinkled on the conductor's podium and on the timpani.
oh my God.
I know, right? It's just like, what people, what are you thinking? You're not thinking. I can only, hope and assume that you're not thinking, because if you think that through and you still think, "Yeah, I'm gonna do this." Hmm.
Right. Right.
I don't know what to
He
say.
obviously did not think about the consequences of that. I mean,
Yeah,
did he
I
get
mean,
arrested?
I got a call from a New York, police detective,
Really?
yeah, asking me about it. Do I know this person and all this kind of stuff? Because they were on my backstage list. Thankfully, it was not only me, but this was somebody who I just barely knew, who I,
Just like a big
essentially
opera
from
fan,
Facebook.
obviously.
What?
Was he just a big opera
Yeah,
fan?
just a big opera fan, and, I think had, seen me, in shows before, and
Yeah.
happened to be in New York. Anyway, it just was a unfortunate thing, because then they canceled. I remember I met up with Rene Barbera and some of his castmates, because they were supposed to do Barbara Seville that night after, and,
It was a 2-day show, yeah.
yeah, it was on a Saturday, and, so, yeah, so it didn't go on, but I think that's kind of the most crazy. I mean, there's things here and there where, you split your pants, or, like, something like that, you forget of something or other, but that was kind of the one that sticks out for me. It was
Well,
crazy. Yeah.
for me, the worst thing that's ever happened slash best story was when I was singing the role of Ford in Falstaff with Portland Opera in
Uh,
2013.
yeah.
And I remember that the the production was a new production, and or well, it was on an older set, but we had new
Okay.
costumes, and specifically they had taken an outline of my foot and said, "Oh, we're gonna everyone's gonna have new shoes. We're gonna send it off to the cobbler, and they're gonna make these beautiful period shoes for everybody."
Oh my
Oh,
God.
okay.
All right.
And
Sounds cheap.
the yeah, I know they were spending some money on it. So the day of the final room run was the day that those shoes arrived. And so I remember the director, Chris Mattaliano, who I
Uh-huh.
absolutely adore and love, um, was at the time the general director of the company as well. And so they, he said, "Listen, if your shoes have now arrived, so let's make sure everyone's wearing their show shoes. If you've got a mask for Act 3 in the forest, or if you've got capes, I want everyone to wear all the things. It's like let's start really getting used
Yeah,
to all this stuff, right?"
sure.
In Act 3, Ford oversees a wedding ceremony where he thinks he is marrying off his daughter to the wealthy Dr. Caius,
Mm-hmm.
when in fact, the way that the show goes, Nanetta, Ford's daughter, is marrying her love interest,
Fenton.
Fenton,
Yeah.
and Caius and Bardolph. I never really understand why Caius and Bardolph will get married, but whatever. It's supposed to be a fun. It's supposed to be a funny thing where it's like
Right.
they don't even realize they're marrying each other. I don't think.
Right.
But anyway, um, when you do the staging, there was a tree stump that was probably about 4 foot tall, I guess.
Uh-huh.
And it had like a little nook that you would step into with your toe to then launch yourself up to the top. And there was enough room on the top of this tree stump to stand
Yeah.
comfortably.
Yeah.
And then to get down from that, you put your heel into the nook and then step down to the stage.
Sounds a little precarious to me.
Well, I'll say this. In all the other staging rehearsals, it worked totally fine. But the day that we had our new shoes on,
Yeah.
no one thought to check if the
Mm.
heel of the new shoe
Would
fit
fit.
into the nook.
Oh no.
And it did, spoiler alert, it did not. And so Pamela Armstrong was singing my Alice, and there's a moment where everyone takes off their masks after the wedding, and there's this musical moment of Fenton con mia figlia, right? Because he realizes that Fenton and Annette are now, oh my God, what did I do?
Right.
And the direction was to step in, down off the thing. And so I tried to put the heel of the shoe into the nook, and it didn't fit. And immediately, like my heel rolled, and I tore ligaments in my left ankle.
Oh man.
And then I tried to catch my balance, but of course I'm already moving forward. And so somehow the toe of my right foot got caught in my cape.
Oh,
And as I'm falling, I'm looking at Pamela going, ah, just falling towards her.
right.
And then the way that I fell, I felt it immediately. I felt a tear in my right leg. And I didn't know at the time what it was, but it turned out to be my right quadricep tendon. Well, let me tell you, I would take an ACL or an MCL or an LCL. I would take any one of those ligaments being torn over the
Over this.
quadricep tendon,
Wow.
because the quadricep tendon is literally what connects your quadricep muscles to your knee.
Right.
And without it, you have zero use of your leg. You
Wow.
can't do anything. And so I lay there on the floor screaming as the
Oh,
music is continuing around me. And then
my God.
there's like a children's chorus there.
Oh no.
There's like, everyone's there, and I'm like screaming. It was terrible. Oh my God. And so then the ambulance came, and they took me in, and I spent the night in the hospital. Now, here's what the kicker was, right? I woke up the next morning at like 6 a.m. and it's like, hey, I'm the director of orthopedics here. And, I think this was just a partial tear. You're going to be fine. We're going to go ahead and release you. And I was so high on
What?
like pain medicine. I was like, okay,
Great.
that great. All right, great. So then the production stage manager, Jennifer Hammontree, came to pick me up, and they, kind of wheeled me out in a wheelchair, put me into the back of her Forerunner at the time. She took me to the hotel, and I get situated in my room, and I'm like, okay. So I finally have time to start thinking, because like I remember the moment that she and her, I don't remember who was with her, but they left, and I was by myself, And I'd already called Christina, and she was on a flight to come help,
Right.
to come be
Right.
with me. But I remember being like, how do they know that it's a partial tear as opposed to a full tear? I never got an MRI.
No, they were looking
And
at somebody else.
or they were just assuming, or they looked at an X-ray and not an MRI. But the
Right.
only and I knew because of previous knee injuries when I was playing football
Right.
that the only way you can tell if something is completely torn. I mean, they do the little ACL check and MCL check where they go up and down with the calf and the thigh
Right.
to see what the stability is. But you have to get an MRI to be able to look through the body and see if
Oh,
these.
right.
So I started calling immediately. I was like, I need to get an MRI. I've got to know for sure because everybody was saying, oh, thank God it's not a full tear. Because if it was a full tear, what ends up happening is that ligament starts to crawl back up on itself.
I was about to say.
And then you have to actually get a ligament from a cadaver to connect it if it creeps back up. It's terrible. It's terrible. It's terrible. So I'm like, the sooner that I can get an MRI, the better. Um, this was this was of course tech week of the show, and so I obviously was out Monday for like a piano dress. I was out Tuesday for like an orchestra dress. Wednesday, I think Chris called me. He was like, so hey, what do you think about doing the show singing in a wheelchair? And I was like, sure, yeah. So he had the set crew build little ramps all around the set, and then we restaged the whole show that I was involved with, getting different characters to wheel me around in a wheelchair, which I will say for the role of Ford, he's so jealous. He thinks that everybody's out to get him, and putting him more in a vulnerable position of being in a wheelchair, it really did work. It was very interesting the way it all
Yeah.
came together. Eduardo Chama was the Falstaff.
Oh,
I
right.
mean, it was just so much fun to play in that way.
Uh-huh.
But I mean, literally, I had both of my legs out in front of me in a wheelchair, and I had a essentially a crotch to ankle leg immobilizer thing on my right leg, and I had a walking boot on my left leg, and they took this brown blanket and threw it over my legs so that you couldn't see that.
Right,
It
right,
was
right,
just
right.
crazy. It was
That is
crazy, and
crazy. Wow.
I didn't get my MRI until Wednesday, which meant I got the results on Friday, which was opening night. And they were like, "Oh yeah, it is a complete full tear." And I was like, and so then, of course, that weekend, I ended up singing the Friday night opening and the Sunday matinee. But my mom and I were trying to call like every doctor in Houston, which is where I was living at the time,
Mm-hmm.
to try to find a doctor that's out of state that takes or that takes out of state workers' comp insurance.
Wow.
And it turned out that there was one, and my mom found him, and
Hope he's good.
he happened to be the orthopedic surgeon for the Houston Texans. And
Wow.
so we ended up getting like the best of the best, and it ended up working out. I flew home on Monday, had a consultation with him on Wednesday, and had the surgery on Thursday,
Wow.
and everything was okay to use my current tendon. And but
That's
yeah, I
great.
mean that
Thank
it
God.
was crazy. It was absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
Um, and my buddy Marcus, who was singing Bardolfo in that production, like in workplaces where it says like, "Oh, there has been 284 days since our last accident."
Right.
He sent me the sign where it's like, "It has been 0 days since our last." But yeah, dude, I mean, the stage is a
And
dangerous place, and
yeah.
I think people need to be aware of that.
Yeah. Keep your wits about you, right?
Right. And I think that to our earlier point where it's like young singers that are listening, or even, whatever, seasoned professionals, just as a reminder, it's like be in the moment, be aware of your surroundings, and inevitably things go awry. And I think when they do, you just have to be prepared and willing and able to deviate maybe from like what is
Sure.
perfect, what
Yeah.
is exactly the way but you
Right.
gotta be able to adjust on the fly. And
Sure.
anyway, I wish everyone a very, very, very safe performance. But I think at the end of the day, that's why we have these amazing professionals around us,
Yeah.
like the stage management team and like the choreographers and fight instructors,
Sure.
intimacy coordinators. That's why
Right.
all of that is there, is to try to create the safest possible environment.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well,
I
I
love
know
that.
that.
Yeah,
Okay,
go ahead.
go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Not at all. No, I was just gonna say that I think it's a great way to kind of wrap it up here. And we look forward to you. Probably see you at this point. We'll probably see you in 2026, I guess.
I think this will probably be one of the last episodes of the year. So
Yeah. So thanks again. I know we got some accolades on Instagram and YouTube and different things for our podcast doing so well. So we super appreciate you guys helping us out there and keeping tell your friends, get our likes and subscriptions.
And whether you listen to it on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or YouTube, yeah, just listen and keep listening because we got some more interesting stories coming at you.
Absolutely. All right. See you soon.
Thanks for joining us on Between the Notes. Make sure you hit that subscribe button.
And join us next week for more behind-the-scenes stories, laughs, and operatic gold coming your way.